Good evening. Today is Tuesday, October 30th, and this is the opening of the Hanson Board of Selectmen Meeting. This meeting is being televised by Whitman Hanson Cable Access. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Take it away, Matt.
All right. Good evening, Hanson. Here are this week's announcements. Absentee ballots are now available at the Hanson Town Clerk's office for a state and special town election being held on Tuesday, November 6. Any registered voter who is unable to make it to vote in person on Election Day due to absent from town, physical disabilities, or religious belief may obtain an absentee ballot. Voters may absentee vote in person at the Town Clerk's office or by mail. Applications for absentee ballots will be accepted at the Town Clerk's office until noon, Monday, November 5th. For information, call the Town Clerk's office at 781-293-2772. Early voting has begun on October 22nd and will continue through November 2nd, 2018 for the state election only on November 6th. Early voting can be done in person at the Hanson Town Hall, 542 Liberty Street, during regular business hours, which are Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., Tuesday from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., and on Friday, 8 a.m. to noon. Volunteers are needed on the following committees: the 200th Anniversary Committee, Capital Improvement, Cultural Council, Economic Development, Elder Affairs, Finance, Historical Commission, Memorial Day and Patriot Observance, Memorial Field Trustees, Recreation Commission, and Zoning Board Alternate. Applications for appointment and information on the committees are available on the Town Hall website, hanson-ma.gov. Vacancies for the following elected boards: Board of Health and 2 members on the Hanson Housing Authority. Applications for appointment and information on the committees are available on the town website, hanson-ma.gov. Tonight, Hanson Troop 34 will be holding a haunted house at the mill until 8 p.m. tonight at the Thomas Mill. And tomorrow night, the Whitman Hanson Student Council will be collecting canned goods on behalf of the food pantry tomorrow night, which is Halloween. So please have a few canned goods on hand. If they don't stop by, please drop off your canned goods at Shaw's. All right, Kenny?
Thank you, sir. Okay, new business. First, we have approve and vote the private way plow list for 2019. You guys should have that in your packets. So I'm looking for a motion to approve the private way
I move that
plow
we
list for 2019.
approve the list as provided to us for the private way plow list of 2019.
Second. Motion's been made and seconded by Mr. Dyer. Any questions? All those in favor? 5-0, Mike. Okay, next we have review and update the Selectmen's 2019 capital improvement plan. Mr. McHugh.
What I'd ask the board to do is review this particular grid. Some things are already in the works, obviously the generator for Town Hall, and we continue to work on the Plymouth County Hospital property. One of the things that we've tried to do each year, if we could budget it in, is putting money aside to increase the amount of sidewalks in town. And again, we'll try to do that in this coming fiscal year. But this is really more of an effort to put this in front of you, let you know what we're working on, what's recently been approved, what's still on the list. We tend to push them forward, like with the highway building. We'd hope to have something done by now, but for reasons that the board understands, it's been pushed for a couple of years forward. But if any member of the board wishes to raise before the board a capital item that they might like to see going forward, whether we fund it this year or this coming year, again, we put things on and sometimes the funding's not there, but they're on the list so we don't lose sight of them. Take a look at it, think about it, and maybe at the next meeting, if you have any additions that you want to bring to the board and the board is supportive of it, we'll add them in. And to the best of our ability, if we can't fund them in this coming fiscal year, we'll fund them in a coming year, but at least it'll be on the, our portion of the matrix.
What's the 10,000 for the Plymouth County Hospital property?
We put away 10,000, or we put 10,000 aside in each budget, just to give them some money, expense money in case something comes up. Similar, one of the things that we used that money for, or we would have used that money for if we didn't have another source, was the contract with the Conway School. So, but we actually had another source, so we were able to put that money aside for potential in the future. So it's just kind of a contingency fund.
Okay. Go ahead, Laura.
Mike, what's the ETA on the generator? Because I really would like to get that in place before the winter.
We have been having a conversation, and I don't want to go into too much detail in terms of names and whatnot, but we had many conversations over many months with a vendor who's on the state bid list, hence, no need to go through the procurement. And that particular company has been unresponsive, and I've instructed our facilities manager to pursue a different vendor, because I agree, I want to get it in before the snow falls, before we actually need it. So it's actually, in all honesty, one of my priorities. You've just brought up something that just within the last week I've been pushing on. So
Yes, my concern is, I know that as these different 100-year events and various weather events happen across the country, those generators get scooped up. FEMA and MEMA and all the other organizations kind of get priority over the average Joe. So, I know it seems kind of like, wow, we've got until maybe, say, January. But
I don't feel that way
we
at
kind of
all.
really have to get right on it.
I
so.
agree, and my preference would have been to have this done in August. And that's when we really started putting the press on them to get it done, and it hasn't been done. So we're moving on from the company that
All
we
right,
were
so you're on it.
This one, most certainly.
Okay, great, thank you.
Anybody else have any more questions? So we'll get back to you, Mike, on that.
Yeah,
Okay, next on the new business, declare equipment surplus, Water Department 2000 custom utility trailer. So I'm looking for a motion
So
to
moved.
surplus this custom utility trailer. Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor? 5-0, Mike. Okay. Is Sean Buckley here?
Mr. Chairman, there was one other on the agenda that it's really kind of just superfluous, but if the board would also vote to declare surplus some miscellaneous Board of Assessors furniture.
So moved. I
Oh,
move.
is it, motion's been made and seconded? All those in favor?
I'm
5-0. Sorry, we missed
Mr.
that.
Chair, I just had a question
Okay,
for Mike on that.
apologize. Go ahead.
Only because I hadn't seen a list.
It wasn't even worthy of a list, Jim.
Okay.
It's just assorted pieces of,
Well,
it's
could
a couple
that,
of desks.
right, and I know we talked about this in the past, but we were gonna have a yard sale at the school.
Yep.
Is this something that could be added to that?
No.
or- No.
No, the reason we're getting rid of it is because we took stuff from the school to replace it.
Oh.
This stuff is
Gotcha.
not worth.
Okay.
All right, questions answered?
And by the way, the yard sale will be the 3rd of November.
Okay, that's awesome, and kind of tangentially related, since Jim brought it up, have our guys had a chance to go into the school and get the stuff, the people at Town Hall?
Yep, every department was invited to, and I believe the majority, if not all of the departments went. It was, we were given access to the building for 3 days. And aside from the assessor's office, some other departments took some stuff as well. A lot of the stuff had already been, and understandably so, had been picked out by the schools to go to the other schools. But there was some, there was some stuff there. Our people did have the chance to go through and grab a few things, so,
All right, good.
All right, excellent. So that one's 5-0, Mike.
thank you.
Okay, we're gonna skip down to appointments. Sean Buckley, 204 Main Street, appointment, ZBA alternate, term to expire 6/30/2020. So you guys should have
We do?
his application for appointment. Sean, thanks for coming in tonight. You wanna say a few words?
I've been a lifelong member of the town pretty much for most of my life. My parents have lived here 40 years. I was born in Brockton and lived on Lakeside Road almost my whole entire life.
Oh, okay, the Buckleys,
So,
yeah.
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 So I've been out of town maybe 6 years out of the whole 40 years. So I'm back in Hanson, been in Hanson for the last few years. I lived in Pembroke and Hull before that. But besides those 5 or 6 years, I've always been in Hanson. And I thought it would be good. I heard that there were some people that were saying that the zoning board needed more members. And since I do landscaping, I'm familiar with plot plans and things like that, and I just figured it would be a good learning experience.
Well,
So,
we're thrilled that you stepped up.
absolutely.
Thank you for
No
stepping
problem.
up. I move that we appoint Sean Buckley to this position as the zoning board alternate.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded by Mr. Hickey. Any questions? All those in favor?
Matt's got a question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, sorry, I thought we were going.
He was just waving at you.
Yeah.
All those in
Get your
favor?
vote up. Get your hand up.
5-0.
Thanks, Sean.
Sean, thank you.
Thank you
Appreciate
very
you
much.
stepping up. So somebody's gotta write that down because Mike's not here.
I got it.
Oh, for time. We got 4 minutes. Okay, old business. We're hopping around a little bit here. Old business. Vote to authorize a school district to store equipment in the McQuon School.
So that's till the end of the McQuon storage.
To
Mike,
the end of the school year, right?
yeah, bidding.
Yeah.
Okay, so moved.
Okay, motion's been made. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded by Mr. Hickey. Any questions? All those in favor? 5-0.
Not to belabor it, but one of the really good things about this is, oh, thank you, is that the school has agreed, originally I thought they had agreed to have someone go through on a daily basis, weekly, during the work week. They'll actually go through the entire week. So, you know, it's obviously that's a benefit to us in terms of insurance and
Definitely.
liability and such. So I thought it was a pretty reasonable agreement. So I'll let them know you approved it. Thank you.
Okay, next under old business is the purchase and sales. That's not ready, so we're gonna table that. Second thing under old business. And, how we doing for time? We got a couple minutes. Let's move down to approving the minutes for October 16th, 2018, regular and executive. Did you guys get a chance to review
Are
the
you
minutes?
releasing executive or?
No.
Okay,
You wanna make that motion?
so moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any questions? Did you guys review those?
Yep.
Yep, we're keeping the executive, what did I miss with
Right,
letters?
we're not without, Mike.
Not
you got
released.
that.
Not
Yep,
released.
Not released. no.
Executive.
Yep.
Okay. All those in favor? 5-0, Mike.
You're just whipping along here.
Yeah, let's approve the liquor
2 minutes
licenses.
until we have a hearing here. Okay, next on the agenda, one-day liquor license. Gail Fusco Hanson, Saturday, December 1st, 6 PM to 10 PM for a Christmas party. And Joseph King Hanson, Sunday, December 9th, 1 PM to 5 PM for a holiday party.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve these 2 liquor licenses. Any questions? All those in favor? 5-0 on the one-day liquor license. Okay, next, I'm gonna open a hearing here at 7:15, at 7:14, so I'll talk slow. Open a hearing pursuant to Chapter 139 regarding the condition of the said property at 16 Liberty Street in the town of Hanson. So I need a motion to open up the
So
hearing.
moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor? 5-0. The hearing is now open. Kate, you can take it.
Sure. So I'm Kate Federoff, Town Council, and we're here tonight to consider whether or not the board should intervene regarding some existing conditions at 16 Liberty Street in Hanson, the former site of JJ's Pub, which burned to the ground. As you know, the building itself was demolished following the fire, but much of the debris remains. And we have 3 witnesses here tonight. I think mostly we'll focus on Mr. Curran, the building commissioner, but in the event we need to speak with the 2 chiefs, they're here as well to discuss the situation. But essentially, the question before you is whether or not the property is a nuisance and or a danger to the general public in the condition that it exists. And if so, if you make a finding based on the evidence, what kind of remediation that you will order the property owner to perform. So with that, I'll turn the mic over to Mr. Curran, who can describe his site visit and his findings.
Good evening. I'll pass these around. You can share if you don't mind. My office had sent out notices, one in August and one in September. The first one was just a courtesy notice to just remind the owner of the property that the debris needed to be removed. I had been in contact with the owner, and they had said they were working on it with the insurance company, and we were waiting to hear.
Verbally in contact, Bob?
Pardon me?
Verbally in contact, you
Yes.
say? Okay.
Then what happened was we were starting to get, I was getting concerned that children may get over there or somebody may get hurt or injured. So I sent a formal notice in September, along with the section of the bylaw that requires them to clean it up. Otherwise, we were going to have a hearing to discuss the condition of the property with the Board of Selectmen. I've been by there several times. Patty Harrison has been in contact with me a few times, and she's, I believe, frustrated because she can't get the funds to clean it up. I did order the night, or I asked the fire chief the night of the fire, to have somebody demolish the building enough so there's just a pile of debris that night, and it did happen. So now we need to either put a fence around it or remove the debris. I would suggest that we remove the debris as quickly as we can. I was out there this afternoon. I took some pictures, but it was a little bit dark by the time I got there, but I think you have all seen it. And I do have some too. You can pass them around. I think everybody here knows.
I drive by it every day.
Yeah,
every day.
Yep.
Just for the record. Just pictures of the debris. Typically, with something like this, it takes a little while for insurance companies to engage or to settle with the owners to have this kind of thing removed. I believe the price is around $16,000 for demolition. Yeah, I think with what they've already done today. So there's about $3,500 worth of work that's been done to put the building into a pile. And then I think the owners have got a price under $14,000 to take the rest of the debris away. My concern is that if the owner doesn't have the funds, how do we take action sufficient to cause this material to be removed, and how do we fund it? That's why we're here.
Okay.
So I think it's also important to note that there have been sightings of folks entering the property and kind of searching through the debris, and that's one of the risks when you have a site like this. It's essentially called an attractive nuisance, where people are interested in seeing what's in there, and as a consequence, it could create a dangerous situation. And under Chapter 139 is the chapter that we're operating under tonight. This board has the power to make an order directing the property owner to take remedial actions, and they could include, exactly as Mr. Curran pointed out, fencing the property so it's properly screened from the neighbors, so it's not as negative. It doesn't negatively impact their property for the time being until they can actually remove the debris. And you can also order the removal of the debris. Failure to comply with that order would result in us taking legal action to enforce the order, and eventually we would lien the property for the cost of removal if we were to go ahead and remove the debris. That said, if we were to do it, it would likely be more expensive, so the lien would be more detrimental to the property owner. But naturally, it's a hearing, and she has a right. I believe Ms. Harrison is here along with her attorney, Mr. Atwood, and they obviously have the right to present their evidence. But know that you as the board, if you've observed or made your own observations, passed by the property, it's important to note that for the record and indicate your feelings on it.
Okay, Mr. Atwood, do you want to speak, sir?
Just briefly, she has a property under agreement. The conditions with the new buyer is going to take the property as is and clean it up. Of course, there's a problem here in terms of funding from the insurance company, which I'm sure you can appreciate. She's under indictment for arson at the Plymouth County Superior Court. I represent her there. I'm primarily a criminal attorney, you may or may not know. They're not gonna pay right now. They're gonna, every insurance company is not gonna pay when they think there's a falsified motor vehicle accident, there's a fraudulent claim on loss, such as jewelry or something like that, and they're certainly not gonna pay on an arson case. Arson cases were tried and difficult to prove, but nonetheless, it's horrendous publicity for a payment on an arson case by an insurance company. So she's greatly handicapped by that. There's a backup buyer also. I saw the photographs, I know the town, I grew up in Whitman, I know the area. Clearly, it's an attractive nuisance. No, we don't debate that. It's a situation which is too bad for everyone. But she would require some time to get fencing. With regard to her financial situation, skipping by the obvious that she retained me at some point in time, I would suggest that she's just paid about $30,000 in taxes to the town of Hanson, and that doesn't entitle her to anything. It just says that Hanson owes her nothing, but I'm suggesting that it sort of leaves her in a bad financial situation. As I understand it, the backup buyer is grossly less than the purchase price being offered now. Purchase price being offered now is not particularly good. The problem, of course, for them picking up, the buyer, prospective buyer picking up the property, is that he wants a building permit. Supposedly he's in the process of doing that. And I would suggest that with regard to that, that's another step. It's going to take some time to do that. So if you're going to order anything, I'd ask that you give her 45 days. But I'm suggesting that with regard to intermediate relief, it might be fencing as opposed to anything else. If you make the order now, I don't think she can afford to do it. She appreciates the fact that if the town does it, it's going to cost a lot more than her getting contractors to do it. She's here. I want to do the speaking for her because of the criminal indictments. Thank you.
Okay. As far, I'll speak first and then we'll go down the board. As far as I'm concerned, it's absolutely a nuisance. There's no question about it. I appreciate the purchase and sales aspect of it, but as you know, Mr. Atwood, a purchase and sales is merely just a piece of paper, until that property is conveyed. So me personally, I would want the property cleaned up, but at a bare minimum, at least fenced. Fenced with some type of vinyl so you can't see it, So I would, and I want to get on and get everyone's opinion. So, like I said, my first, request would be to have them clean up the property, but at a minimum, fence the property with vinyl fence, and we can figure out the time frame and stuff, but 45 days for me is not an option. I would want it done maybe 5 days. And if they can't do it, then the town take the cost of fencing the property properly. It's just, it's a liability.
I'm concerned, I hear what you're saying, and I agree with the majority of what you just said. I'm concerned about the material continuing to sit there and leach into the wetlands and whatever in the ground around it. And I have been hearing from a lot of constituents that frankly they're sick of looking at it. People living near there are getting themselves all worked up about what the heck might be leaching into the ground. So there's the visual, which the fence addresses, but it does not address the underlying issue of getting it cleaned up. And I absolutely can appreciate that it might be under agreement or isn't. That holds no bearing with me whatsoever, because I want to deal with what's here, not what's promised. And I think our building inspector started in good faith having conversations immediately, pretty much after the fire, and in good faith sent letters and had conversations. And while I can appreciate that there's been other things going on, our sole purpose, my sole purpose, my objective is to do what's right for the citizens of Hanson, and that's to get it cleaned up. A fence to me is not enough. It just isn't. I'd be willing to say a couple of weeks on the cleanup, but that's as far as I want to go. I want to see that mess cleaned up. There's been plenty of time to do it. And as far as the paying the taxes, I believe those were back taxes, so I don't know that that really makes me feel, I don't know why Mr. Ad would mention that, but
There
it
really is
just,
no bearing on it.
you know.
I agree with Mrs. Kemet. I think the public outcry of a fence alone will say that the town is basically derelict in its duties at this point. Our constituents have been on us well over a month and a half. The complaints are nonstop, and when. And the longer we wait, I think we, as a town governing board, look bad, incompetent, and I hate to see that happen to us. So it's like, no, I don't agree with a fence at all. I think as soon as that fence goes up, the noise from the town will be ridiculous. So it's like, if it costs us more for the town to remove the debris, then it costs us more. And I'm sorry, I am, but it's got to be gone. And I think, as Mrs. Kemet just said, like, you know what? Within 2 weeks, within 5 days, it's like, hire someone, get it out of here, put a lien on the property, and let's move on. Because waiting for purchase and sales, as Mr. Mitchell said, there's no guarantee that 45 days from now anything will happen. And this should be happening now.
So I agree that needs to be cleaned up. My only concern with the town getting involved with that is asbestos, abatement issues. DEP has to be involved when you're cleaning up a commercial property. So it's not something that I believe can be done in 2 weeks. So, we
But
can
at
go
least-
down that
yeah.
road, but it's gonna be pretty costly for us to do that.
That is true, but as Kate alluded to, the cost is going to ultimately be borne by the owner here, and a lien will be put on that property. It has to be done right. And I guess I would actually argue that in a way you're making a case for the town doing it, because if we're concerned about the contaminants and we're concerned about it being done right and in compliance with DEP, then we should probably be making sure that we're the ones
Well,
doing
whoever
it.
does it, whether they bear the cost, is still that same process has to be done, whether the town pays for it or not.
I just think that we've already had enough conversations about it. Not us, but like with this individual and with the property owner. Mr. Curran has had enough conversations. I think we need to take some action on this.
Mr. Dye?
Mr. Chair, the fire happened back in July. Here we are approaching November.
Yep.
And I think it's a blessing that no one has gotten hurt, measling around, collecting mementos of JJ's Pub to give as Christmas presents and whatnot. So, but with all seriousness, it was an icon of Hanson.
It was,
People
yeah.
all wants a piece of JJ's Pub, but we can't be risking safety here. The school is just a 1/10 of a mile away from it. Half day, kids go out.
Yep.
What are they doing? They're unsupervised. They're probably crawling around on the pile. I know if I was a kid, if I was walking home, of course I would check it out.
Right.
So I would say that we need to get this taken care of. I think putting a fence up is just kicking the can down the road. I think we need to clean it up. It's becoming an environmental issue as well as a health issue. And it's unfortunate, I understand financial burdens, I understand that, but this is something that needs to be addressed right away. And I don't want to put a dollar figure over a child's life or, any bystander's life.
I agree.
Mr. Icky?
Finally, thank you, Mr. Chair.
See if that's us.
Kate,
Yes.
my question would be to you. Because, there's a lot of concerns, and it goes right from the ground to being an eyesore. Is it possible that the board could vote to have a fence put up within 5 days, then have it removed to take care of Laura's concerns, because that concerns me what Laura said, and that whatever's on the property and seeping into the ground could be a problem later. So the quick fix is to get the fence up so we don't have to look at it anymore because it is an eyesore. But the final result should
Continue
be
with the
that it
cleanup.
gets cleaned up.
Yeah, you can absolutely take a two-prong approach. First, the temporary remedy of fencing and shielding the public from, number one, the view of the unsightly pile, but also protecting the children and other trespassers on the property by fencing. And then also order the remediation of the property, the cleanup of the property for another date certain. Either way, your order should specify the number of days or the deadline, but you can definitely do a two-prong approach.
I like that.
Because what I would like to see is a fence up within 5 days, and then if we do run into problem with asbestos or anything like that, maybe 60 days, because, you know, Kenny, you had said that it could take a while.
It could definitely go on.
So 60 days.
If you don't mind.
A demo permit would be required, and typically with the demo permit, I have somebody that specializes in pest removal go out and take a look at it and submit a report as part of the application process, and somebody to look at hazardous material. So typically, they would hire an environmental company to come in and just check through to make it so we're pretty certain that there's nothing that's hazardous in there. If there is, they may have to take it out, or if they can't, if there is some and it's spread all over the place, the whole load would have to go out as what's called hot, and then they would have to sort it out at a facility.
How long do you think that would
Yeah,
take, Bob?
what kind of ETA are you looking at?
I think that the environmental study would determine whether or not there's hazardous material there right away. They would probably test it within 2 days, they would know. If it is contaminated, then they would need more time to evaluate and then give either they'd have to have a machine there on site to separate it, or they'd have to, like I said, take the whole load out as hot.
Because we would need a cost so we can figure out how to fund it.
I think you're right. I think she does have a cost on a normal demolition. It was just under 14,000. A demo permit will be required, and that's going to be part of it. So that may be a component that was overlooked when the contractor gave her the price to remove. And I think a lot more time has gone by now, so I have to be more careful.
Okay.
So help us with timeline as far as, because, you know, we're trying to move to
I
action
think it would take
here.
probably, to be safe, I'd say a week and a half, 2 weeks to determine once an environmental company has been notified, to take a look at it and to get into the pile and take some samples.
And obviously, Bob, that's not free.
No.
So Kate, that could be rolled into any type of,
Yeah, you know what, you could make it three prongs, the fencing, going in and applying for the demo permit,
Okay.
a deadline for that, because
Environmental
that
study.
doesn't take very long. That's just a person coming in, filling out the paperwork, and then you can have the further delay for the ultimate cleanup.
I think once we start the permit process, it'll be pretty good. I'll encourage everybody to move it along.
So if we were to say 45 days for soup to nuts cleanup, get a fence up within 5 days, soup to nuts 45 days, just to allow that couple of weeks for the demo.
I think that's, yeah.
Does that
I
seem-
think that's appropriate.
Okay. I'd like to do it in 30 days, but I think I'm probably
Yeah,
pushing
you know,
so.
and sometimes things don't go the way you want it to go, and unfortunately, we have to allow some time for that.
Okay, so can I make a motion?
Well, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
So I just want to understand this right now. Well, we don't have a motion or
Yeah,
anything
yeah.
like that, but would it be possible to say that we order the fence and through you, how many days did the owner say that it would take them to clean up?
Mr. Atwood, how many days would it take you to clean up the property?
I asked for 45, but I would suggest that with regard to the fencing, it sort of, I don't know if you can get somebody out there that fast. I don't know that you probably know more than I would on that, but that seems like a very short time to get any contractor out to do anything.
They could get, there's several companies that have temporary fencing, like what was done at the Indian Head School.
Yeah.
I think that was Sweezy Fence over on.
Yeah.
And the big concern I would have is they would have to get some kind of a black mesh that they
Right.
they
So you
wire
can't see
tie onto the fence, and they would have to tie the sections together so the kids can't just move them apart. Typically, they're put into cinder blocks, the legs of the fencing. I think that would be adequate and shows the town is taking proper care.
How long do you think it takes you?
Depending on the fence company and their availability and the availability of the temporary construction type fencing, just a couple of days.
So if we were to say within a week for that,
Yeah, we'd have to make some calls.
Okay.
I certainly would be willing to help, if that helps.
okay?
I definitely think a deadline on filing the application is important too, because it shows a good faith effort. It shows a good faith effort on the part of the property owner to comply.
Okay, so now we're kind of looking at possibly 4 prongs, right? So we've got the fencing, we've got the applying for the demolition permit, we've got the actual testing of the materials, and then we've got the actual removal of the materials.
Which the testing is done by your
Yeah.
office, coordinated by your office, and the cost.
No, it's not, typically it's the owner,
Okay.
or the contractor. So this may not be as difficult as you think. What'll happen is somebody like Banner Environmental down in Duxbury, they may get a call. They come in and they'll look at what's there. They'll decide whether or not it's something that they are willing to test. Either way, the company taking the risk may be the contractor that's removing the debris. If he brings the debris to a facility and they find something on there that would cause a red flag to come up, then they're responsible. If we could do anything to avoid that, that's what my goal would be. But ultimately, it would be the demolition contractor.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Dyer.
So what I was gonna say was, maybe could we order, fencing right away? Maybe in good faith, maybe after this meeting, I don't know what your office hours are, but maybe if they could file a demolition permit, just in good faith within the next, maybe tonight or the next couple of days, just in good faith. It's going to take us 45 days as the town of Hanson to get the ball rolling to remove it. They say it's going to take about the same amount of time. Is there a way to set up for the town to get ready to remove it if they don't happen to clean it up in 45 days?
So kind of work in conjunction.
Yeah.
I don't see a problem with that.
You'd have to petition the court right away.
Yeah, so first of all, the process would be, you could figure out what your contractors would be and all of that stuff, so they're ready to go. But the process would be that if they fail to comply with your order, first they have to fail. And then we have to run into Superior Court
Yep.
and verify with the court that they'll provide us injunctive relief, allowing us to perform the work and then lien the property. So there is a second prong to that. That said, it can be done on a short order of notice. There's no contest relative to the facts, it's just, that's been stipulated too by the property owner. So, it wouldn't be a long process, but you have to have that process.
Well, Bob, I'm sorry. I just want to ask you a question, Bob.
Yes.
This is your signature on both these forms?
Yes, it is.
The one dated August 28th and the one dated September 13th?
That's correct.
And this was in good faith?
Yes.
It's October 30th?
Right.
I'm sorry, Selectman
Yeah,
Dyer,
I
but
feel the
do
same
not
way,
agree.
Mike. I feel like, I know where you're coming from, Matt, and I know you're coming from a good place. I don't want to give that latitude. I'm done with the latitude. I just, I think we've already been dealing in good faith.
So how many days for the injunction do you need?
So we would have to wait for the expiration of the order. So whatever you decide tonight, if you decided ultimately the cleanup had to occur within 45 days of tonight, then we could go in on the 46th day, request a short order of notice, which would put us out a couple of days, and we'd be before the judge at that point.
We can't wait that long. So Bob, what's a realistic time frame to order them to clean it
Can
up?
I ask a question before
Sure.
I answer that? Is it possible that this board asks permission from the owner that they take over the cleanup
Thank you.
right now?
Can we have a minute? Can I
Yes.
step outside from the?
Yes,
Yeah,
go ahead.
yeah, feel free. Yeah.
So,
Carol, we'll take a brief recess, okay? Okay. All right, after speaking with Kate, Kate has some concerns about the time frame and all this, so Kate, if you could just,
So the one thing I'm concerned about is striking a settlement agreement. Chapter 139, which is this process, which results in an order, which then results in court review, which ends up giving you the authority to lien the property. I'm concerned of the expenditure of public funds where we couldn't recoup those funds. And more importantly, I'm also concerned with the Inspector General's office and whether or not we'd be able to procure the services in a timely way, if it would qualify under the emergency procurement exceptions to 30B. So for that reason, I would prefer if the board would deem it appropriate to issue an order with reasonable timeframes to comply.
Okay, it was a good concept, but, you know.
I think it just won't work.
so based on that, I would say 5 days for the fence, but then allow the property owner to clean up the property, give them 45 days to clean up the property.
What's that bring us to? December 15th,
Yeah.
roughly?
Yes.
So now you have to hope there's no.
Okay, so you're looking for a motion?
Yeah, so I'm looking
Okay,
for a motion
so
to,
I move that a fence be installed within 5 days, that within 15
the
days.
fence with the, what you call it?
On
With
the
the
perimeter of
screen.
the property
With the
with the
mesh screen.
screen.
With the mesh screen.
Mesh screen, that within 15 days, application for the demolition permit be filed, or do you want it shorter than that?
No, we have to allow them adequate time to be
All right,
able
so
to clean
I
it up,
said
so
15
for,
days.
so 40, no,
No,
it's gonna
15
be.
days for the demolition permit,
Kate,
for the demolition permit,
to apply for it,
the
okay.
permit, yeah.
Gotcha, make sure. Okay.
With the demolition being completed by December 15th.
Perfect.
Perfect.
Do I hear a second?
Second. Give it a minute.
Seconded by Mr. Hickey. Does anybody have any questions?
I just one Kate, and that handles everything.
That handles everything.
Okay.
Okay.
So the town has financial constraints as well, so we understand the situation, so we're trying to work with you the best that we possibly can here,
Thank you.
okay?
And can you make a motion to authorize Mike to execute the order on your behalf, provided it comports?
Should we
Yeah,
include that in
vote.
this motion?
Oh, you want to vote?
Or should we vote on
did you
this?
already vote?
No, we
No, we
didn't
didn't.
vote
Oh, I'm
yet.
so sorry.
Okay.
I jumped
All right, let's
ahead.
vote on this one. All those in favor?
Mr. Chair.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Matt.
Well, when we say clean up, I think there's two ways, can we put more of a definition on?
Yeah, absolutely.
In compliance with all pertinent regulations.
Right.
And to the extent that there are contaminants in compliance with those regulations.
Probably,
Satisfactory
to him, yeah.
Yeah, satisfactory to the building
Yes.
commissioner.
Anything else, Matt?
Nope, that's it.
Okay.
Did you get that
You
whole
got, you
motion
got all
down?
that, Kate?
Yeah, fortunately, it's also being
No,
taped,
that's
so.
Mike. You wouldn't get it, email
All
that
right.
to Mike. All those in favor? Okay, 5-0. Okay,
And I make a motion that we authorize Mike to enter into issue this order. On our
Motion's been
on our
made.
behalf.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded by Mr. Hickey. Any questions? All those in favor? Okay, 5-0. I'm looking for a motion to close the hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor? 5-0. Hearing is closed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Josh, is Josh here? Come on up, Josh. Thanks for your patience.
Thanks, Bob.
So, Josh is coming up to discuss Hanson Day on June 1st.
Yeah, no. Even though I wanted yesterday.
Good evening, members of the board, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate you having me here tonight. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Joshua Singer. I'm the director of the Hanson Business Network. So we are looking for next year to bring back the old Hanson Day event that was around, I believe the last one maybe 2, maybe 3 years
Probably
ago.
3 years or so. Yeah.
2 or 3 years. I, in my own personal experience, thought it was one of the best events that I attended in the town of Hanson. And in the spirit of just really looking for more, I guess, more exposure of everything that the town has going on, and just connecting that to the residents, I think bringing back this particular event will be a success as it was in the past. Some changes that we are discussing in terms of the event, instead of holding it at Camp Kiwanee, holding it on the town green. As you know, it's a little difficult getting in and out and parking, and I think it might be a little easier and more visible if we do it on the town green. But with that, we'd be looking at, as the chairman said, June 1st with June 8th, 2019 as a rain date. Mentioned on the town green. We're going to start promoting this right at the beginning of the year. It is a pretty large scale event, so I think that 6 months is about the time that we'd need to organize everything. But we are looking to touch base with local businesses, also community organizations such as Kiwanis, such as Rotary Club, Panther Education Trust, as well as just getting town committees that have openings and town boards that might need some more involvement. And just having really the town of Hanson and all of the different things that are going on in the town to have a showcase to show people in the town just how much this small town does have to offer. So, yeah, what questions, if any?
I'd love the idea of us maybe having a table with maybe Mike or somebody at it to talk
Answer
about the
questions.
openings we have. You know, on different boards and committees, so if
Is
people
that
were
Saturday,
there.
Josh?
It is.
It is, okay.
It is.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, good.
Through you. Josh, in the past, Hanson Recreation held this event, and the last couple of years, they've decided that they don't want to do it. Have you talked to them to see why they're reluctant to holding such an event?
That is a great question. I haven't talked directly to the Hanson Recreation Commission. I know that Ron San Angelo was sort of the driving force behind the event, and with his departure, I think that has fallen by the wayside. I can certainly touch base with them, but I do know that it is a bit of an involved event. I think it takes a lot to coordinate, and perhaps with everything else that the Recreation Commission has had going on in recent days or recent months, they just haven't had the time. They've had bigger fish to fry on their plate.
It might be a good idea to see if they'd want a role in it, even if they don't want to be the primary organizer. They may,
Sure.
you know.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, because, like the Halloween extravaganza, that was
Yeah.
the Hanson Business Association, correct?
That was actually put on by Camp Kiwanee.
Okay,
themselves.
because I know
We had-
that you
we
guys
had-
It was a
approached them.
partnership.
Yeah, it was a
yeah.
it was a good partnership.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 Yeah, but I do think that bringing back this event, similar to how Hanover has Hanover Day, East Bridgewater has the East Bridgewater Business Showcase. A lot of these small towns, they have a lot of success with these types of events, and having a free event for folks just to get exposed to everything that we have going on in such a small town, I think is great for all aspects of the town. Committees that need involvement. We're looking for more people to fill boards. Businesses that want to connect with the local consumers, as well as all the different. I'm a part of the Kiwanis as well, and one of the big issues that I see all organizations having is just getting people involved. And I think that issue just stems from not enough exposure. It's not put in front of people enough. They don't really know what's going on. Hanson is sort of a bedside community.
Yeah.
Things close around 9:30 or so. But just getting more exposure about the different things that we have in town, I think is going to benefit the town in all aspects.
So Mike, just before you came in, we were talking about, would it be possible for the town to have a table where we have the committee openings at Hanson Day? So if people are interested in filling out the paperwork right there, Johnny on the spot, fill out a committee application.
Yeah, by all
you know.
means.
Okay.
Yeah, that's easily done.
I've got a couple of questions for you,
Please.
Josh. You haven't talked to the Rec Commission about basically sponsoring Hanson Day yet. So it sounds to me like you're doing this by yourself right now. So is there a committee, or are you planning to put a committee together? Or are you hoping that the rec commission is gonna wanna, to grab it and, do it where they've done it in the past?
Sure. That's a great question. So I do absolutely plan, with getting in touch with the rec committee and seeing if they want to be involved. That being said, we do have, I believe, 12 or 14 members of the Hanson Business Network. And as all of our events go, it's never one person doing everything. So we do have a set number of businesses that will absolutely look to put in the effort and make this a successful event.
Okay. Because, I mean, I was part of Hanson Day, and we had, I was doing it as softball, getting the youth sports involved in it.
Sure.
And we had the basketball, shooting thing there, you get the ball, you just shoot them in or whatever. So is your plan right now, or have you not thought far enough yet that the whole day is free, or is it possible for these youth programs, to help with funding, or even to have the Hanson Food Pantry here, where somebody could just, bring in a can or two to make a donation? I mean, it sounds like you're at the ground level.
Yeah, I think the ball's in play like anything.
Right, because I mean, when you're talking, I mean, I'm already thinking, saying to Laura that there should be a table with Hanson 200 there.
Yeah.
Whether we have T-shirts, hats, cups, whatever, to pre-order for Christmas 2019.
Yeah.
Yep.
Or, whatever.
Well, Josh is on the 200 too with us.
Oh,
so,
okay,
yeah,
great.
Yeah, so he's all over that.
A lot of cross-pollination. But, yeah, you bring up a great point. So my first thoughts, and we are still at the ground stage,
Okay.
and I do want to reach out to some people who've had involvement before just to get some of the logistics down. But my thoughts are not necessarily charging people to go or charging businesses or groups for a table. That's all free there. But that being said, if the Boy Scouts or the Kiwanis or
Softball, girls softball.
or the youth sports, they want to do some sort of fundraising activity, by all means. I think that's the purpose of the event, is to just drive, hey, we have all these things going on, we have all these great causes, and just trying to get a little bit more recognition, but yeah, fundraising as well for those groups.
Did I mention that I was the president of girls softball? Did I mention that yet?
I think you did.
All right, and if you needed help from the selectman's office, I would be more than happy to, give you a hand in this.
We would very much appreciate it. Yeah.
Write that down, Josh.
Don't write it down.
It's in the minutes, though. Mike's got it.
Mary's not here.
I like the food pantry idea Jim said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe you can use that as your entry, how do you get in? You bring a can,
That's a great idea.
so that's what you're, instead
I'd
of,
actually like to have the food pantry have a table there too, because we're
Oh,
always
absolutely.
looking for volunteers
no,
too. So that's another opportunity,
Yeah, and it drives it. I think we don't want to charge you anything, but hey, your admission ticket is bring a non-perishable item for the food pantry, and
That's right.
we'll let you in.
good.
Matt had
Josh,
something.
have you reserved the town green yet, or are you looking for a motion tonight?
I think that's what he's looking
Okay.
for, yeah.
I am.
That's a good question, because you get, in June, you get the fishing derby, you get a lot of things coming in the summertime, so I suggest you do that.
Just to clarify, I don't think you necessarily reached out to Recreation Commission, because I think you were thinking if it's not a Camp Kawani, then it's not a Recreation Commission event. So it isn't like they said they didn't want to have anything to do with it, or you even
Yeah.
approached them. It's just, it was going to be on the town green, not at Camp Kawani, so therefore, maybe not. But I do think, to echo what these guys said, it would be a good idea to reach out to them.
I think so as
It's
well.
a little less clear, and maybe it's something we need to work on. To the extent that events aren't happening at Camp Kawani, what involvement would we expect the Recreation
Well, I think
Commission
that's
to
the
have?
stigma that we have to shake,
Yeah,
is
yeah.
that recreation is town-wide. It's not Kiwanis.
Right, I think you leave that up to them
That's
to make the decision.
that's-
They may say, you
yeah.
know what, it's not on Camp Corning grounds, we don't care, we don't want to be involved.
Well-
Or they may say, yeah, we'd love to be involved.
Not to go too far down this path, but some of you just brought up something I think we've been talking about, I think since I've been here, maybe previous to that, is the concept of expanding the task of the Recreation Commission above and beyond Kiwani. And I think that's something that's worthy of talking about going forward. But I think right now, the way the Recreation Commission is constituted through town meeting vote, it is just singular in terms of overseeing the camp. So I think that, and not to go too far afield of what you're here to talk about, but I honestly think that in the not too distant future, we should have a conversation to see, how or if we want to expand the role of the Recreation Commission to encompass more aspects of recreation in the
And I
town.
agree, but I think that, as we well know, right now, they have a lot on their plate.
And
with
again,
the
it's the
infrastructure.
beginning of a
But-
discussion.
But to Matt's
Yeah.
point, like, soon we're gonna have Plymouth County Hospital and potentially something up in McLean. So we're gonna have to try to get that concept of, okay, if in fact there's like maybe an overarching recreation commission, like a governing, and then maybe a subcommittee that's Camp Quaney. I don't know how that ends up working, but we do need to have the conversation, because all recreation isn't necessarily going to be at Camp Quaney in the future. So anyway, you just happen to come at a philosophical time for that, Josh, and very fortuitous meeting for you to attend tonight.
Figured you guys would be worn out by the hearing, that I could just slip in whatever I needed to for answers.
Exhausted.
So maybe reach out to them, their next meeting, you can go in and talk to them.
Yeah. I'll make
Mr.
this-
Chair,
Yes.
I would like to move to approve the town green for the Hanson Day on June 1st and rain date on June 8th,
Second.
What year?
2019.
2009, just wanted to make sure it wasn't 20. Okay, motion's been made. Do I hear a second?
Yes.
Mr. Hickey?
Second, I already
Yeah, he
said
said
it.
Yes.
I apologize, it's not here. What?
Any questions? All those in favor? 5-0.
No, I have to recuse myself because I'm part of the Hanson Business Network,
I
so.
don't think you do. Why do we
Well-
have to recuse
I
you?
have to excuse myself because Josh is gonna make me part of this new committee that he's putting together.
It hasn't happened yet.
Oh, all
You have
right.
to recuse yourself afterward.
It's good practice.
Yeah.
Okay,
It doesn't hurt.
okay.
Just
So,
not even
It's
about.
not gonna-
401.
It's not going to affect the vote for passing. so-
401.
So, Josh,
Excellent.
we'll go right after Laura's committee and get them to help us.
There we go. And did Mary add
Keep us
the St. Patrick's Day
No,
note to my top?
no, it's not on the agenda.
Thank you, Josh.
We can do it the next time.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll make sure it's on the agenda for the next time.
Thanks,
Okay,
Josh.
next we have Town Administrator's Report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As usual, I'll try to be brief. I never seem to accomplish that. I do want to mention, and it's come to my attention within the last day or so, that there were some issues concerning the striping, the marking of some of the roads here in town. I want to make the board aware, I want to make the public aware that we have dismissed that company. And I am in conversations with the highway surveyor to retain a different company going forward to not only fix the mistakes apparently that have occurred over the last couple of days, but to address the work that apparently has not been done. So I caught enough information, I caught enough wind of the fact that there were some issues, and we wanted to tackle those right away, as did Bob Brown. So just as a notification to the public, we're aware of the problems. We are very upset about the problems, and we are taking care of the problems.
And it is not Mr. Brown's
It
highway
is-
staff that
It
did
is
this.
not, it is not, and thank you for bringing that up, that it is a private company that was engaged through, the regular 30B procurement processes, and actually prior to what apparently happened over the course of the last couple of days, I had been speaking with Bob Brown about the fact he had, at that point, been disappointed in the failure of this company to meet some deadlines, to get work done that was promised to be done. What apparently happened over the course of the last couple of days was the straw that broke our back, and just to make the public aware, we are addressing that immediately, and that this company is no longer doing work in the town of Hanson.
But I think Mr. Brown did mention that if people have any concerns, to please call the highway
Yes.
department, and his staff would handle whatever
Yes.
concerns they might have.
Yes, thank you.
A quick question. This is the first time I'm hearing about this. Could you
Elaborate?
elaborate a little bit, and has this issue been resolved? Is it like scrubbed from the streets?
No, it has not.
Okay.
It happened over the course of the last couple of days. Without getting too much into the details, because I don't know the technicalities too much, my understanding is there was a better than not chance that the paint that was used was water-soluble paint as opposed to the usual paint which is used, which it has some sort of silicone or rubber sort of element to it, which makes it set much better. This particular street, I believe it was Phillips Street.
That's one.
Reed and Phillips.
Okay,
Yeah,
it was,
That's not the only ones.
Yeah.
that, as a result of the improper application of these paints, that the paint ran because it was done during either a rainstorm before or after or during, and as a result, not only did the paint run all over the place, but you can imagine driving your car through it and get it splattered onto your car. So, but prior to that, as I insinuated, Bob and I had been talking about the fact that he was disappointed in the fact they weren't getting some contractual, some work done in the timelines that we agreed to. So we're already moving in that direction. This was just, okay, we're all done. So.
I mean, honestly, if you guys took a look at it, it literally looks like chalk running down the street. Like that, it's really crazy.
Looks like they painted in the middle of a rainstorm.
Yes.
Well,
I
I think that's exactly the best way to describe
They were
it.
trying to meet a deadline. I'm just kidding, but that probably is what happened. Is they took that deadline seriously and decided to paint in the rain.
You don't work for them, right?
No, I do not work for them.
So again, it was just something very timely that I wanted to bring up because we did get a lot of calls on that. I'm happy to report, I think I may have sent this letter to the board. I know I sent it to the FinCom and to the town accountant and to the highway department that we've actually been allocated an additional $63,747 in Chapter 90 money. So it was unexpected. Every community in Massachusetts got, a proportional amount. This, for the town of Hanson, is an appreciable amount of money.
That was in addition to?
That's in addition to our allocation that we've already gotten, which brings our current allocation to $382,482. Now, that's not all received this year. That's added up to with unexpended funds from a couple of previous fiscal years. But we're sitting on just under $400,000, which is a good position, and obviously we're $63,000 some odd better in the black as a result of this additional money that we got from the governor's office. So good news.
Hey, Mike, I'm wondering if we might be able to have Bob come to a future meeting, talk about the fact that he just finished grading the private roads, maybe kind of address that subject, and then whatever he ends up finding out about this contractor, maybe give us a little update.
And I know that we've had an ongoing discussion over the course of the last couple of months or so in relationship to private roads and, doing what we can within our limited means to take care of private roads. So I think that, and I had suggested at one point that perhaps, again, Kate's going to be a regular visitor, it would seem, at our meetings, but to have her come in and explain. I know we had a discussion about accepting private roads and adopting a policy, but we haven't necessarily had a conversation about what we can do currently with private roads that we're probably never going to accept. So I know there are a lot of questions out there, a lot of people that live on the private ways, as to what we can and can't do, what we should and shouldn't do. There are plenty of people out there that prefer to keep their roads private, but again, they're taxpayers and we do what we can for them, but again, it's limited, and it's best that maybe we go over in public with Bob, with Kate, so everyone is aware, especially the board is aware of what we can and can't do.
Well, and I think one of the big problems, and we're definitely not alone, this is a countrywide, situation across the nation, is a lot of times people purchase houses and they're not aware they're on a private road. It isn't necessarily called out in the deed.
Yeah.
And so it's quite a shocker to people when they're there for a little while and then they figure out, wait a minute, I'm responsible for this road. Here I was thinking the town wasn't doing what they were supposed to do. But then they find out that it's a private way, and that cannot feel good when you figure that out.
It's duplicitous on the part of whoever is selling the home, and I have run into that on a number of occasions here, and it's an unfortunate thing to have to explain to someone. We do plow, we do grade, we do what we can, but they're minimum things. owing not only to the budget, but owing to the fact that we don't own the roads.
Right.
You know, and we technically, to a certain degree, don't have the authority to do some of these things on the roads. Town meeting votes a certain amount of money at every annual meeting to fund the grading. You've just voted to allow the plowing of the streets, which makes 120% sense in terms of not only access, but the fact that we could easily need to get emergency vehicles down there. Those are things we need to do. But that's sort of where it ends. And again, a lot of people, especially people that are coming from towns that maybe have a bit more infrastructure, maybe a larger employee base as far as the highway department goes, or a Department of Public Works, it's really kind of a shock to them when they find out. Again, I don't like to say it this way, but you're kind of on your own with the exception of the few things that I just said. And it really is incumbent, I feel, on whoever's conveying that property, whoever's selling that property, to make that people aware of that, but it doesn't happen sometimes.
It doesn't. In fact, the Globe did a whole expose on it a couple months ago.
Oh.
That's- Yeah, it about across Massachusetts, all of the different people
Oh.
that were having problems,
Oh,
yeah.
I'll have to look for that.
So it's quite a pervasive issue.
Okay. So, moving forward, I'm starting a conversation, and it's a very conversation that started within just like the last couple of days or so. Well, I think Matt might be a little bit aware of it. We are looking at whether it makes sense for the town to take over the streetlights and the poles. There are programs out there, and again, I'm just starting to talk about it now, but there are programs out there that I believe could make it cost neutral over the course of 5 years. You know, put in whatever new energy efficient lighting that's available in there, and after 5 years, have the potential of actually reducing our energy costs to light the streets. So I want to make the board aware of it. I'm not even close to even presenting anything to you guys or making any recommendations, but it could be a cost saver within 5 years, and especially if it's, you know, at a zero cost to us to get to that point. But I want to make the board aware of that, so doesn't come out of the blue.
Does that mean we own the maintenance? of
Yeah, and I had a very quick conversation with Bob Brown about that as well, and with the people that I'm talking about that would help facilitate the transition. But that would also, the cost of that would also be negotiated or factored into whatever savings we would have. We would outsource that. We wouldn't expect the highway or anyone in town to take care of that. That would all be outsourced.
Any idea how many streetlights we have in Hanson?
Yeah, 300.
How many?
300.
300.
I'm sure you're gonna
Give or
check
take.
with other towns that have gone through this
Yep.
process, et cetera, et cetera, et
And
cetera.
many have. And, you know, like most things, it's not one size fits all. And, you know, we'll do our due diligence with the accountant. You know, with Bob, like I said, I reached out to him to start the conversation about potential maintenance problems. We'll fully flesh it out, but it could be a step in the right direction to save more money for the town again, so.
And also, I would say refer to the Hanson
Yep.
Energy Reduction
Yes.
Plan that
Yep.
we just
Yes.
voted in a
Yes.
couple of weeks ago.
Sure.
Because that figure is actually in that plan. So you can actually look at how many streetlights we have, how much it's costing us, how much money it's gonna save us. And believe it or not, that's the lowest hanging fruit for the biggest bang of the buck that we can get with the,
So from your perspective, is that maybe like one of the first things you'd wanna kind of try to
I
tackle?
would direct the town
Yeah.
to do towards that. And
Okay.
the energy board feels the same.
Okay,
The only problem I have would be the maintenance of it, as long as it's outsourced.
Yeah.
Because you would need to buy a new bucket truck
Right.
or streetlight bulb changing truck.
Sure, and that's a really valid point, you know, not to indulge into this subject, but now we're looking at replacing them with LED instead of mercury lights. So these LED lights
last long.
last long, you know, you're talking 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. So you're not gonna have to worry about replacing that bulb every 2 years.
But
Has National Grid done that yet, Matt?
National Grid would be involved in this.
Have they started converting their current lights over to LED?
That I'm not sure of.
Brockton has done it, Abington has done it, a lot of
Yeah.
surrounding communities.
But the
that-
towns did it as opposed to National Grid doing it
Correct.
on their own.
Yeah.
And to get back to what you just said, Jim, that actually continues to be my biggest concern in all this, is the maintenance. Because my quick look at the financials, as I said, I think we're not only saving money after the fifth year, I think it's a break even for those 5 years to get to the fifth year. It's, you know, the carrying costs. So
Because that would be
It's-
my concern, is that all of a sudden, we need
Yeah.
a bucket truck that's $85,000.
Yeah, it's gonna be a gotcha. It's
Yeah.
gonna be.
Definitely
yeah.
cheaper to send to, source it out.
Yeah.
So that's in the works. I want to make you aware of that, especially you, because you're into it.
We won't be here.
I also, within the last few days, have had a conversation with a company called Clear Government. Basically, what they do is they provide an external website in which they give more or less a sort of total outline as to where the town stands financially, in terms of public safety, in terms of population, in terms of the budget going forward. The whole idea is transparency. It will cost us nothing to subscribe to it. It's something that's fully covered under the community compact that we signed on to, I don't know, it was a year and a half or so ago when we had the lieutenant governor here. But, in trying to continue to push forward the board's desire to be more transparent, to have more information out there, more public information out there, I signed off on a form to request the funding from the government today, from the state. This company, ClearGov, is going to bring it, and they're going to, champion it and move it through the certain hurdles it needs to go through. Again, it's at zero cost to us. I would work with various departments in town in terms of putting the actual information out there. I think I may have, and if I haven't, I will do it tomorrow morning. They already put together a mock page for the town of Hanson. If I haven't sent it to you, I'll send it to you tomorrow for you to take a look at, a general sense of what could be put out there. Again, no cost, gets information out there. It actually looks pretty snazzy.
What's the downside, and who else has done it?
Oh,
Whitman has.
yeah, you had to ask me that. There are several towns on the South Shore that have done it, and I can get to the list. I just don't have it off the top of my head.
Okay, yeah, if you can send that
Yep.
document that you mentioned and maybe a list to, that'd be great.
Yeah, there's several in the area that have done it. Whitman has done it.
Yeah.
It's one of them.
Yep.
So, I'm happy to at least report that I've gotten a little bit of traction in terms of moving forward with trying to hire a conservation agent and a health agent. We interviewed somebody, I believe it was the middle or to the beginning of last week. The chairman of the Conservation Commission and I actually found another website on which I was able to put a listing for the conservation agent. So it seems like to me, excuse me, we're getting a little more, we're getting a little further down the road and trying to put more permanent solutions together. And along those lines, I just had a conversation with the chairman of the Board of Health this morning, and we've set up 2 interviews for Monday for prospective health agents. So I think finally we got a couple of decent resumes in that, again, it's a Board of Health hire, and they need to be comfortable with whoever they're bringing in. And I think we finally got a couple of resumes in that they were comfortable with, and that we're going to move forward and talk to a couple people on Monday. What comes of that, I'm not sure. But again, we're further down the road than we were when I last spoke to you about that.
Mike, excuse me, so
Yeah.
are you putting things on like the MMA?
Yep.
And are you, like, for the conservation, did you put it in the MMACC?
Yes.
Okay.
And the health agent ads have been put on the, whatever particular groups the health agents belong to and boards of health belong to. Aside from the fact we've advertised it. Excuse me, as I think you're all aware, because I believe I reported it out to you right after the auction. The auction on Friday netted us a one-time windfall of $131,500. Besides the fact that we've put the majority of properties that we had on the list back on the tax rolls. There were 3 that did not sell. 2 garnered absolutely no interest whatsoever. They were little teeny lands of no value, of little value. And the other piece of property, in my opinion, we did not receive a realistic bid on it. We did get a bid, but I did not accept it because it wasn't reasonable. And aside from that, and I think I'd mentioned this to the board, I don't make that call on my own. I have our assessor, I have our treasurer collector, and I have our attorney, and we go back and we discuss all these things. Although I think I made it pretty clear on that one that I just mentioned, even during the bidding, that I could not accept it, but. So, as the board is aware, we have already put together a list for our next auction that is being circulated. It's just, actually, the time is just about up, to put another group of properties out. Hopefully, again, it'll have to go through the process of title searches and things of that nature. And as I think I mentioned to the board, and again, I'm not being short like I thought I would be, this last auction that just took place on Friday was different from the auction, the first auction we did, in terms of timing, in terms of the amount of time it took, because the tax title attorney that we use was intimately involved in that first group, so she didn't have to really do an awful lot of looking. This stuff that we just auctioned off, and the stuff that we're going to auction off in, I don't know, the late winter, early spring, is all old stuff, and there's a lot more due diligence that needs to go into that in terms of, making sure that we get the deeds right, and you understand all of it. So
What I noticed about this auction was the visibility was a lot better for the pieces of property that were being auctioned off. I really dug those signs that were all over the place.
well, what we did, Laura, is, and I think you're also aware of this, we changed auctioneers. And I'm going to agree with you. I was very impressed with what this particular company did. Not only was the signage better, but I'm not sure if any of you, I think I had sent you guys a copy, and I may not have. And a butter brought in a copy of a letter that the auctioneer sent out to him, which showed the piece of property. It was a little schematic map, but also had a little arrow that said, "You are here. You live here. This is a piece of property. Do you have any interest?" It was very nicely done, and I think that
You sent that out to all the abutters that were auction property?
they did. The auctioneers, yes, they
Nice
did.
touch. And that's not required, right? I
No,
mean, we never
no,
required that.
no.
Now, do you think that drove up attendance?
I most certainly do.
Yeah,
Oh,
okay.
I most certainly do. And I was surprised at how many people were here for, again, land of low value. And there were bidding wars, and we actually received the more expensive properties. We did sell because it made sense. They were below what we had assessed them at. But the land of low value, almost all of them went far above what we had those assessed at. So it kind of evened out. But I was surprised because one piece of property that we actually had assessed at, I think $500 went for $5,000.
Wow.
And that's because we had two neighbors that, both of which were interested in it. And hopefully, there's no bad blood between them. But there was easily at least 4 of those sorts of backs and forths that drove
I
it
got
up.
the letters.
Yep.
Oh,
Yep.
that's great.
I truly believe that
Now,
that
the
had
two
something to
that
do with
didn't
it.
sell, can we add that into
Yeah, we'll
the
put them back
existing
in.
li-
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, we'll put them back in.
okay.
That was
Actually,
Ken's
the 3.
question. He just waited that whole time.
Yeah.
That was his question.
Because the work, I was gonna say, Mike,
I
because the
withdraw
work,
my question, go ahead, Jim.
because the work is already done in those properties, we
Those are
could add
easy ones.
that.
We can just throw them right back in.
All
Yeah.
right, thank
It
you.
did
There's
sound better
actually
coming
there's
from
actually
you.
3.
All right, and I do have one other question, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, to the
Mr.
town
Hickey,
administrator.
go ahead.
Was the percentage the same or different, Mike, from this auctioneer to the last one? Because I know the last one, it was 10%.
Actually, I think it was less. I think it was 5%.
Was it really?
Yeah, I think so. But of course, that wasn't borne by us. That's on the seller, but on the buyer.
Okay.
Right.
So yeah, we paid nothing for the auctioneer. The
Yeah, they
auctioneer.
add that to the price of
Yeah,
what
yeah.
they're paying for the property.
Yeah,
which is
so,
nice.
whatever we got, if the final bid was $10,000 for that piece of property, we get the 10,000. They actually end up spending, $10,500 or whatever it works out to be, plus legal expenses. I think it's another couple of $100 in terms of what the tax title
Well,
attorney would have to take.
I know on the last one, where we made 154,000, we actually made 171, and they took 16,000 from the properties that were sold from us.
Oh, I'll have to look into that because that doesn't sound right to me.
Okay.
I'm not saying you're wrong. It doesn't sound right if that happened.
I knew we had to pay the auctioneer something.
I'm going to look into that, Jim.
Okay.
That's phenomenal, though. I like that progress. That
And-
sounds good.
Just because I did quick math with the property selling on High Street in the last auction.
Oh, yeah,
In the last year, we brought in almost $500,000.
Yeah.
It was $473.
yeah,
So,
It's huge,
yeah.
yeah. No, I mean, that's.
considering it was stagnant for 10, 15
And,
years.
Back on the
and
tax
again,
rolls.
and again,
Back on the tax rolls.
and besides being back on the tax rolls, besides getting that, that one-time decent amount of money, and I've said this to several people over the last couple of weeks, we also lose a decent amount of liability. You know, these are pieces of property out there that we can't police on a regular basis. At this point, we don't have somebody potentially hurting themselves on it and us being liable for it. So, you know, it's a win on a number of different levels.
Huge.
So, the last thing I wanted to share with you, and I did copy this and put it in your Dropbox, and I did give you copies of it, hard copies. And I'm not going to read through the whole thing, but I think it's important to single this out. We did get a very, very complimentary letter actually it was addressed to me, but it was referencing, you know, the supportive a day program we have over at the senior center. And I invite you to read the whole thing. I won't read through it right now, but I do want to touch upon the point that this particular, it's a Hanson resident, has a relative who was in the beginning stage of dementia, and they brought her over to participate. They didn't necessarily want to bring her to a nursing home or an assisted living facility. They wanted to keep her at the house, but they, you know, obviously needed to reach out and to get some assistance during the day because they worked. So they've been involved with the program over there for quite some time, and they're extremely happy. We're a very complimentary letter. Mention the fact that because of the attentiveness of the staff over there, they were able to pick up on a medical condition that this particular individual had before the family could, or before the doctor could. Brought the individual to the physician, mentioned the particular problems or symptoms she was having, and did pick up on something that could have actually been very serious in the end. So, you know, it's a very, and I'm not telling you guys anything you don't already know. It's an extremely well-run program over there. It's valued very highly by the residents of town that have used it in the past and use it right now. And we also do get people from the outside, from surrounding communities that take advantage of it as well. It's just a wonderful thing, and you don't see that in too many towns, and being able to provide such a service. So, and what I will do is, I'll also mention that since attending the particular program, they've noticed a marked improvement in the individual. And I will read verbatim the last sentence. We just wanted to pass along our appreciation for a wonderful program and service that the town provides, and that the staff there is second to none. And I agree. And I think it's important to, you know, mention these wonderful letters. We don't get them too often, but when we get them, we are extremely appreciative, and we like to recognize our people for a job well done.
They do great work there, they really do.
And that's all I have.
Yep.
Thanks, Mike.
What's the status with the cell phone antenna, Mike?
Oh, I'm going to be speaking before the school committee. I want to say it is I think their next meeting is the second Wednesday in November. If you recall, part of our agreement, because it is on a piece of property the school is leasing, is that I would seek their support as well once we went down the road. I have every reason to think that they will support it. The individual who was the point person from the company is going to accompany me. We're also going to be prepared if anyone has any questions about health concerns. They actually have somebody who will do an analysis of, whatever, I don't want to say admissions, but, whatever particular concerns might be at that site in terms of height and topography and all of that. We remain convinced that there really are insignificant, if any, concerns at all, but we will be prepared to address that. The process as it stands right now is they are doing some more of their due diligence in preparation to going before the Conservation Commission and in preparation for going before the ZBA, because the location that they have proposed to put the pad down is going to require a variance from the ZBA because I believe it's within 50 feet of an abutter. But that particular location, the abutter has about 300 feet of woodland between him and this particular location. So we really don't think it's going to be an issue at all. And the conservation, they're going, again, I don't want to say we're going to have any problems with that, but that's a little more complex, and they've got their experts in there doing the analyses, doing some flyovers, and doing soil samples and things of that nature. But again, we chose this location way back when, in conjunction with a representative of the Conservation Commission and with members of the Board of Assessors, with people with the ZBA, I mean, the whole 9 yards of the Board of Health. And we had decided that this location was doable, given any possible, concerns of any of those boards. We obviously the town of Hanson owns an awful lot of property, and there are other potential places to put cell towers, communication towers. However, some of those had problems. And I think, and you guys know well more than I do, that prior to me getting here, that you had gone through different iterations in different locations and they didn't work. So again, the process that I had used was to bring everybody together and flesh all that stuff out right now. No, that won't work, that won't work. This has issues, well, what about this one? Yeah, I think we can make that one work, and that's why we threw that one out there. Again, there's some permitting that's still involved, but we are very confident that we're not really going to run into any issues. The goal is to potentially have a lease before the Board of Selectmen to sign right at the end of the calendar year.
Okay,
Wow.
excellent.
So
That'll be great.
I look forward to it. It's a revenue stream, and it's an appreciable revenue stream. But I've always looked at it almost more as a safety concern, a public safety concern, especially given the nightmare that we went through last March. So I'm extremely happy about this.
All right, committee reports. 20th Anniversary Committee.
I'll keep it short but sweet. We've got a logo contest underway, which is wildly exciting, with South Shore Voc Tech and the high school vying for who will come up with the logo for the 200th anniversary.
Oh, that's cool.
Yep, so more to be discussed on that. And after much gnashing of teeth, the committee has decided that probably we won't be having a pop-up store up at the former Plymouth County Extension Building. We're a little nervous about a ramp and ADA access. We're also nervous about, there's no bathroom facility there in the front part that people can use, and recently we've just heard that there's heat concerns. These are all things that the town probably needs to address, but we haven't had it funded at town meeting, and we're not gonna obviously have it addressed in time for our pop-up store. So we're probably gonna primarily drive sales through online sales, which is kind of the way most people buy things anyway. And then we'll sell things at events like the Hanson Day and Christmas party and everything else,
That's
so.
if Josh and I allow you to.
If you guys allow us to. If, maybe you could get a little licensing fee out of that.
It's all who you know, right, Jim?
So that's all we've got on the 200th anniversary.
Good, excellent. Energy Committee, Mr. Gaia.
We have not met since. Might have a meeting in November.
Okay, thank you. And final, Plymouth County Hospital Reuse Committee.
I believe we are meeting tomorrow.
Okay, excellent, thank you. Highway Building Committee, we're just waiting for that property to be.
Next week.
Next week, okay. We'll look for it on the agenda.
If you want, I can. The meeting next week, we're also, we're going to be bringing in the new consultant, the new potential consultant. I mean, we're pretty much decided we're going to use him, but we'll be bringing him before the board, before the committee, to discuss how to best move forward with the second phase of design, potential design.
Highway, we haven't met, we're waiting for that property to be conveyed. Aquan School Reuse Committee, Laura?
Surveys out there, closing down that puppy, November 1st. So,
Yard sale on the 3rd.
get online, and do that. What are you saying?
Yard sale on the 3rd of November.
Yep, yard sale on the 3rd.
Saturday.
And which we don't really have an active role
No,
in.
but
And the committee will be getting together sometime in the next 2 to 3 weeks to kind of go over survey results, figure out what other public forums we'll have to gather input, and we will take it from there.
Excellent.
I'm wondering if the TIF committee should be put on here as a standing, or if you want to cover that in your
I think
updates,
maybe
when
I'll
there
start-
are
yeah.
pertinent updates.
Yeah, because it's, we're not necessarily sure after, hopefully this is successful when the next one will be, so I would say better maybe you and I just kind of report on it when as
Okay.
appropriate.
All right.
Ms. Dickey?
Yeah, and through you, Mr. Chairman, Mike, on the yard sale on November 3rd.
Yeah.
I know we have nothing to do with it, but it is Whitman Hanson School District,
Mm-hmm.
and the money would go to the schools. Do you know when that yard sale is?
The 3rd.
The time?
Oh, the time? I think it's 9 to 3.
Early birds allowed?
Probably
Early
not.
birds.
You know what an early
You're
bird
not gonna
is,
be
right?
one of those, are you?
I'm getting the good stuff.
Yeah, your version of early bird is
2
like
eggs and toast
3
for
a.m.
$2, I know.
Right.
Well, we did go through, I can't remember if I mentioned it this evening, that was so long ago. We did go through, or the departments did go through and grab some stuff, so we may have grabbed all the nice stuff, I don't know. I went through, I think it was Friday after the auction, I think I drove through just to take a look. And yeah, there's still some interesting stuff there. In all honesty, if they're still there, there were some soapstone tables that I think they're used for science classes, that while they only sit about yay high, you know, if there was a remodeler, I mean, that would make a beautiful countertop. Put a couple of those together. And, you know, Bob Curran and I went by, when we originally went by, when we were looking at it, and Bob and I were both looking, says, that's, and we lifted them up, and they were heavy, and he said, oh yeah, that's soapstone. So there's a couple of nice things there.
All right, I'm looking
There's
for
my
a
plug.
motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. All those in favor? 5-0. Good night, folks.
Any luck on that?